Anyway, World War II started. As far as the U.S. was concerned, December 7th. Right after that, they dropped the age limit from 21 to 18 for the aviation cadet program. They dropped the 2-year college requirement to a high school. And so I went down and signed up with about 300,000 other guys. and
there was that many people that wanted to be pilots?
Oh, they were thick.
Wow.
In fact, I was quite concerned. I signed up. That would have been in June. I waited until September before they called me down to downtown Los Angeles and swore me in as a private, as a duration, as a cadet. And thought, well, now I'm on my way. Well, then I went home and waited another 4 or 5 months before they called us up. They had so many people and there was no place to put them. They were trying to build Santa Ana Army Air Base, which was the induction area for cadets on the West Coast, and they were just overwhelmed with. They didn't even have the barracks to put them in. So eventually, I got called up, and I went through in a little less than 10 months through Santa Ana, which is pre-flight. Went up to Tulare, California for primary in Stearman's, to Tex Rankin School, and Tex had been the aerobatic champion of the U.S., and so it was a fun school.
So they hired the best civilian pilot and had him come out and train you guys?
That's correct. In fact, Tex actually owned that operation. They appointed, most of the primary was a private enterprise that were set up by the Air Force for cadet training in the primary bases. And so you went through, got about 60 hours. And I flew the Stearman, and we have behind us our competitor. But this aircraft was used mainly on the East Coast. We didn't see many of them out in California. We had Stearmans and Ryans on the West Coast. Got through primary, went to basic. Now we're on a military base, and I went to Lemoore, California. And that was one of the largest Air Force bases, or Army Air Corps bases. And it's just, on final, you can still see the hangars and everything. The final at Lemoore Naval Air Station, you can still see all the hangars from our old base.
Wow.
But got through basic, went down to Williams Field, Arizona, and that brought me closer to the P-38. Most of the P-38s came out of Williams Field, just south of Phoenix. And from there, we were on a fast track, and we weren't quite sure why we were on this big fast track, but all of a sudden we get 90 days. I got to fire the guns once in the P-38. One gun. We had 4 50s and a 20 millimeter in the nose, and they let us fire one of the 50s. All of a sudden, we're on a train going to the East Coast, and we're heading for England.
Wow. When you said you wanted to fly a P-38, and yet you had worked on the P-51s, what was the deciding factor that made you want to fly a P-38 instead of a P-51?
The P-38 was a high altitude fighter. It was our first real combat aircraft. The P-40 was a stopgap airplane, did very well. P-39 didn't do well at all. The 38 was the only high-performance airplane we had. The P-51 at the time that I worked on it was a low-altitude airplane. It had an Allison engine, and anything above 11 to 12,000 feet, you're out of power. So The 51 was going to be a low-altitude British-used aircraft, and that's what they wanted, extremely fast, and they used it for tactical work. And so that, as far as I wanted to be in aerial combat. I wanted to be a fighter pilot and shoot down a bunch of airplanes. So I stuck with the 38, and of course I didn't realize the British were putting a Merlin engine in the P-51 about that time, and we were going to get the greatest air-to-air combat airplane of the war. But
I guess that's what threw me off, was because I always thought of the P-51 as being the best air-to-air combat aircraft of the war, but I didn't realize that it didn't get there immediately, and it had to get there in stages. So that makes sense to me now.
Yeah, well, they did come in stages, and plus the fact that when they did get the Merlin engine, it went to the 8th Air Force, and the 8th Air Force had the greatest POR group in the whole world. They had access to all the newspapers. They got all the publicity. The P-51 was the greatest airplane in the whole world. And the poor old P-38 had been soldering from early 1942 in the Pacific on to North Africa, and doing well all the way. And no matter what you asked it to do, it could do it. So I was still a P-38 fan.